You will not believe this. My greedy daughter-in-law, she tried to push me down a flight of stairs so she could hurt me, so she could get my inheritance. Well, you know what? Little Miss Princess didn't know. This was all caught on CCTV. And now my son is going to divorce her and she's begging him not to.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Layla. I live alone in my family house in the countryside. My husband died of lung cancer about 21 years ago. He was a rich landowner and loved me very much, so did I. I've never even considered dating after him. We had a son together, Liam. He's been everything to me, and not in the you should never leave me clingy sort of way, but I just love him and genuinely want the best for him. Don't mistake me for one of those son-obsessed mothers I've read about here these past couple of days. Anyways, Liam's father left behind a large fortune for me. I've decided that I would give 50% of it to my son and 30% to my daughter-in-law and the remaining 20% to charity. It seemed like a fair and meaningful way to honor my husband's memory. My son Liam, a bright, successful man, he works at a reputed multinational company as a lead manager. He earns well and has a promising career. He lives in the city due to his job and ritually visits me every weekend. He has asked me to move in with him a couple of times, but a city air just doesn't suit me. And B, this house has far too many memories of Liam's father to leave behind. Nonetheless, he's a good boy who takes care of me and loves me very much. Guys, the reason I'm even here writing to strangers on the interweb, recently he had fallen deeply in love with a woman that he's been dating for, 6 months. I'd met his girlfriend Ella before, and she's a beautiful young lady with a refined taste and a good dressing sense. However, this is the maximum you judge about someone in such a short period of time. The problem is, despite my reservations, my son rushed into marriage with her. And for some reason, from the very beginning, I had this nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Before they got married, I tried to talk to my son. I told him that it would be wise to take some time to get to know her better. 6 months seemed too short of a time to make such a life-altering decision. I was worried that he was blinded by love and not seeing the full picture, but he was adamant. He was convinced that she was the one, and nothing I said could change his mind. They got married, and my concerns were pushed to the back of my mind, replaced by a hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong, and that she would prove to be a good partner for him. His wife, Ella, is naturally living with him in the city. Every other weekend, they would visit me at the ancestral house. Initially, my daughter-in-law seemed pleasant enough. She was always polite, and we would have friendly conversations during their visit. She seemed to be trying hard to make a good impression on me, and for a while, I was hopeful that my initial worries were unfounded. However, as time went on, I began to notice little things that raised my suspicion. She was overly interested in the details of my husband's inheritance. She would often bring up the topic of money, asking probing questions about our finances and my plans for the future. At first, I would brush it off as a harmless curiosity, but soon it became clear that her interest was more than just casual. There were other signs too. She never seemed genuinely happy to spend time with my son or me unless there was some mention of money. Her behavior felt calculated, as if she was always measuring her words and actions to get on my good side. I couldn't shake off the feeling that she was only with me, my son, for his money. Now, before any of you say anything, no, I did not jump to conclusions right away. I genuinely tried to keep an open mind and heart towards her, and accept her as my daughter, not just my daughter-in-law. Yet there was something that kept striking odd. See, there were several signs. For starters, her spending habits were a huge red flag. Despite knowing that my son had a good job and earned well, she always seemed to be pushing for more extravagant purchases. She constantly wanted to buy expensive clothing, jewelry, and go on these crazy vacations. When my son hesitated, she would pout or act disappointed until he gave in. It was as if she was trying to drain his resources as quickly as possible, without any regard for financial prudence. Even during family gatherings, her behavior stood out. She often tried to mix herself with the wealthier relatives, ignoring those who were less well off. She would laugh at their jokes, compliment their attire, and generally just try to be as charming as possible. It was clear that she was trying to secure her place within the more affluent circles of our family. rather than genuinely getting to know everyone. She even had issues with my charity work. I've always been involved in charitable activities and I often donate to various causes. However, whenever this topic arose, she would become visibly annoyed and even dismissive about it. She would make subtle comments suggesting that the money should be kept within the family. After seeing so many signs, I don't think I'm wrong in thinking that my daughter-in-law clearly loves money a lot. This is still acceptable to me, but what if she loves it more than my son? I decided to talk to my son about my concerns, and during one of their visits, I asked him to sit with me privately. I expressed my worries, telling him that I felt his wife was more interested in our money than in building a life with him. I tried to be as gentle as humanly possible, not wanting to hurt his feelings or cause a rift between us. But he didn't take it well. He dismissed my concern, saying that I was being paranoid and overprotective. He believed that I was judging her unfairly and that she genuinely loved him. It hurt to see him be so blinded by love, unable to see what I saw, and I tried to reason with him, but he was firm in his belief that I was wrong. He assured me that she was a good person and that I had nothing to worry about. Despite his reassurances, I could not shake off my doubts. Each visit seemed to reinforce my concerns. One evening, when my son was out of the room, she made a comment that sent chills down my spine. She casually mentioned how lucky my son was to have a wealthy mom. There was a look at her face that I had not noticed before. It was as if she was letting her true self slip through the mask that she has been wearing. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. I kept replaying our conversation in our mind, feeling more certain than ever that she was not the person my son thought she was. I knew I had to do something, but I felt helpless. My son was completely taken in by her, and I didn't know how to make him see the truth. My main concerns is that this is my daughter-in-law's behavior, when she only knows that my son earns well and that I have a large fortune that someday my son will inherit. I'm scared to even consider what will happen when she learns that she has a 30% share in it. Yeah, she doesn't know it yet. However, what will happen when she learns about it? Will she become more minded? Will she fight me more? Or will she take her share and leave my son? I don't know. There's a possibility that I'm wrong. Honestly, I would like nothing more to be proven wrong. However, I'm concerned that what if I'm not? What should I do? Should I confront my daughter-in-law? Should I try to approach my son once again? My mind's a mess. Please help me. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story is a wild one, and oh my goodness, this daughter-in-law, she has some red flags, doesn't she? Or is OP just really overthinking things? There's two comments that weigh in on both of those, so let's check out the first comment from Pretty Vivian 449. Hey OP, you seem like a real mess, and honestly just trust your gut. You've been around long enough to spot when something's off. It sounds like Ella's behavior is really suspicious. I mean, if she's constantly talking about money and pushing for expensive things, that's a red flag, let's be real. You're just looking out for your son, which is totally understandable. Maybe have another calm talk with your boy and explain your concerns without attacking Ella. Hopefully he'll start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Good luck and stay strong. Comment number 2 from Mason WL says, Wow, OP, you sound super paranoid. Your son is a grown man, and he can make his own choices. Just because you have a bad feeling in your little tummy about Ella doesn't mean that she's a gold digger. 6 months might seem short to you, but people fall in love quickly, all the time. You're making it all about money and inheritance, which is harsh, pretty harsh. Maybe she's just trying to understand her future with him. Your son has already told you to back off. So maybe respect his decision, should you? Yeah. Sometimes the problem isn't the daughter-in-law, but the mother-in-law who can't let it go. Let him figure out his own life. Ugh. Update number 1. I thought my daughter-in-law only loved ease and luxury, which was okay. I mean, who doesn't? But turns out she's a straight-up greedy person and would go to any extent to get money. It's been about 2 months since I first posted, and these 2 months were more than enough for me to learn about my daughter-in-law's true personality. However, before I tell you how I reached this conclusion, thank you for all the comments. Many of you were kind and related to me. However, there were some people who thought of me as just this mean old lady. A mean old cranky mother-in-law who hates her daughter-in-law for no reason. Let me clear one thing. I don't hate Ella. I just think that Liam got married into a rush and she clearly seems to value money a bit more than my son. And if I'm weary of her because I want the best for my boy, I don't think I'm at fault anywhere. So judge me all you want, but I'm on here and, I'm on to her. Especially after what's been happening over the past few weeks. Let me start from the beginning. So guys, about 2 weeks after my previous post, my son and daughter-in-law came over for their usual weekend visit. We sat around the table sipping on tea and catching up on each other's lives. But as the hours dwindled by, I could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. My daughter-in-law, usually bubbly, chatty, seemed strangely quiet. She smiled and nodded along to our conversation, but her eyes betrayed a sense of unease. No matter how many times I tell myself that it couldn't be, I couldn't help but wonder if she had overheard the conversation I had with my son the other day. Well, the last time they were here, I pulled my son aside to talk about something important. Our family's inheritance. I wanted to make sure he understood my wishes, especially when it came to his wife's shares. I didn't want to let her know about her 30% yet, at least now till I had my doubts cleared. Little did I know my daughter-in-law had been listening in on the whole conversation. How do I know this? Well, because when I asked my daughter-in-law if everything was alright, she said that she was just concerned about me living alone. She said it was one thing for me to live alone when it was just me and my son, since I didn't like it in the city and my son can't shift here due to his job. However, now that she's there, maybe she should start visiting more often and staying for longer periods of time, not just weekends, so that she can take better care of me. It struck me as odd, but before I could say anything, my son was all over her, emotional and in awe of her concern for me, so I didn't. Well, let's just say that lately my daughter-in-law has been over a lot more, and soon enough became clear why. Though I'm not sure. I think she must have learned about her share of the inheritance. Initially, she pretended to be sweet and helpful, but I could tell it was all an act. She was trying too hard to please me and made me uneasy. She would fuss over me, offering to help with chores or bringing me cups of tea without being asked. Her eagerness to please bordered on desperation, a hunger for approval that left a sour taste in my mouth. It was as if she was trying too hard to win me over, to earn my trust and affection. But the more she tried, the more uneasy I became. Sensing that there was more to her intentions than meet the eye. However, as the days went by and she understood that her tactic wasn't going to work on me, her true colors started to show. She became rude and mean, doing things to hurt me like hiding my medication or making me trip over things. Can you believe it? She was literally trying to hurt me. It was clear she didn't care about me or my son's feelings. All she cared about was herself and the money that she thought she would inherit. Before you ask, yes. I've tried talking to my son about what's happening, but he didn't believe me. He thinks that I just don't like her as he got married to her in a hurry. It hurt to see him take her side over me, but I couldn't blame him for wanting to believe his partner. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel alone. I feel scared. Guys, just please tell me what you would do. Updates number 2. Hey guys, it's me. Well, I'm back for an update. I know. It wasn't already enough that she was behind my money and then my son sided with her more than me. Well, now she wants to isolate me from my whole dang family. Yes, I'm convinced that my daughter-in-law is no less than a witch who has manipulated my whole family against me using her little charm. Let me explain. Remember how I told you that I shared my concerns with my son, but it was to no avail? Well, many of you suggested that I should not give up so easily and should try talking to my son again. So I did, hoping maybe this time he would believe me. After about a month of my last update, one evening, during one of their visits, I decided to, it's time to have a serious conversation with him when my daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. We sat in the living room and I began to speak. Choosing my words carefully, I told him about all the things I'd noticed, how his wife seemed to be trying to hurt me in a small, subtle way. I explained how she hid my medication and arranged things for me to trip over, making my daily life more difficult and stressful. But again, my son didn't believe it. He gets angry this time and tells me that I was being paranoid, imagining things that weren't even there. It hurt to see that he could not trust my judgment. He thought I was just an old woman, being overly suspicious. He dismissed my concern, saying that his wife loved him and cared about me too. He couldn't see past his own feelings for her to understand what I was trying to tell him. This conversation made me sure there was no further point in discussing this with him. He had gone too far. Ella must be really good for my son to trust her so much that, well, his own mother's concerns fall deaf to his ears? It isn't just my son who doesn't trust me, but now my whole family. My daughter-in-law Ella is very clever indeed. She spread rumors among our extended family, painting me as a controlling, spiteful person who could not accept her into the family. She told everyone that I was difficult to live with, and that I was trying to make her life miserable. Oh, slowly she turned everyone against me. My relatives, who used to trust and respect me, began to look at me with suspicion and doubt. They believed her stories, and I thought I was trying to boss her around. I felt alone and scared. It seemed like there was no one that I could turn to, no one who would believe me, and the people I loved and cared for the most were all convinced that I was the problem. My home, which had once been a place of comfort and security, now felt like a battleground. Every visit from my son and his wife became a source of anxiety for me. I never knew what she would do next or how she would twist the situation to make me look bad. I started to dread their visit, feeling a knot of fear and tension in my stomach each time they came. It was exhausting to always be on guard, to constantly have to defend myself against her subtle attacks and manipulation. I've been trying to carry on with daily life. It's difficult. The stress is already taking a toll on me physically and, of course, emotionally. I feel trapped, nowhere close to proving what's really happening. I don't know. I'm now wondering if the 30% share of my fortune is really worth going through all this. Maybe I should just give in and let her have it. Hopefully then I'll be able to live peacefully with my son for my remaining days. What do you guys think? Update number 3. I'm sorry. I know it's been over a month since I last updated. It would have been longer or even no update ever again. Why? Because I'm writing this from the hospital bed. Yes, my daughter-in-law's greed had finally crossed the line. She reached this level of pure evil. I feel stupid for ever considering giving a share of my fortune to that human, if you can call her that. Now, after what she had done, I would rather give all the money to charity than give her even a penny. That witch tried to off me. Yes, you read it right. Let me resume for where I left off. About 15 days after I posted, Liam and Ella came for a little visit. It was like any other visit, yet I could not help but feel a bit worried. Everything was normal until my son went out to make a call. It's just the two of us, returning to the living room on the ground floor from the kitchen of the first floor. I was standing at the top of the stairs, and my daughter-in-law approached me with this weird look on her face, and before I could say anything or understand what's going on, I lost my balance and tumbled down the stairs. The pain was excruciating. Everything went black. It all happened all of a sudden, and I have no recollection of what happened next, until 11 days later. I wake up in the hospital, surrounded by all these beeping machines and the sterile smell of antiseptics. My body ached all over, and I felt weak and disoriented. My son was there, with red swollen eyes as if he's been crying for hours, looking worried. He asked me what happened, and I lied to him straight up, telling him that I myself am not sure. Maybe I tripped. I know you must be thinking, why not just tell him? The thing is, there's one thing I've learned about my daughter-in-law over the past couple of months, is that she's really manipulative and can twist anything in her favor. Even if I did tell my son the truth, he would confront his wife and she could very easily manipulate the situation and just convince everyone that none of it was her fault. Hell, she can even convince them to believe that she must have even tried to save me, but being the delicate female that she is, could not. Honestly, I was in no condition to go through all that drama, when in my head already felt like it was, split apart into 4 parts, or maybe it really was. After a while, my daughter-in-law came in with fake tears in her eyes, asking how I was feeling. Surprisingly, without me having to say anything, my son pulled her aside and asked her what she was doing when I fell. I didn't expect this, and honestly, it felt good to know that my son still cared about me enough to question the girl he blindly loved. However, as I predicted, very craftily, she presented herself as the perfect kind woman, who tried to save me but could not. She starts crying all these crocodile tears and fake blaming herself for what happened. Honestly, someone get this woman an Oscar. My stupid son, being as kind as he is, immediately hugged her, asking her to stop crying. I couldn't even watch, honestly. So I just closed my eyes and went back to sleep. Now, the part I so desperately wanted to tell you guys, the thing is, I have something against Ella that she has no idea about. It's just the thing that'll help me get rid of her for good, but I don't want to rush it. I was discharged yesterday morning and I came back home. I called Liam and Ella and told them since I have a close death call, it made me realize how little time I have left in this world. I told Ella about the fortune and her share in it. Of course, she acted all dramatic, how she doesn't care about it, and my well-being is the priority. My son insisted I stop worrying about it too. However, I insisted. I want to announce my will in front of the whole family and ask them to call a meeting. Ella falsely believes she's going to get a hefty, chunky 30% of my fortune and is running around making sure that everybody's going to be there. Little does she know I have something up my sleeve that she'll never forget. I'll update you guys in just a bit. Update number 4. This is the final update of the story. Hey guys, long time no see. Well, it's been 6 months since my previous post, and, well, I told you how I called a family meeting to announce my will in front of everyone. This will be my last update, so I'm starting this with good news. My greedy daughter-in-law is no longer a part of my family or the lives of my close ones, including my son. He divorced her! Oh, why? Let me start from the beginning, shall I? Or should I say where I left off? So, on the next weekend, my whole family was present, along with my son and daughter-in-law. Some of them seemed concerned for me. Others, who obviously believed in my daughter-in-law's lies, had a more distant expression on their face. My daughter-in-law, oblivious to what was about to unfold, wore a smug expression, convincing that she was about to receive her share of the inheritance. But little did she know I had a surprise in store for her. I stood up, clearing my throat to get everyone's attention, and my daughter-in-law smiled in anticipation, thinking that I was about to announce her windfall. But instead I thanked her. I thanked her for helping me see things clearly, and for showing me the truth about her intentions. And her face, oh, it faltered, confusion flickering across her face like a broken TV. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. I reached for my telly and connected it to the TV, explaining that I had something important to show everyone. The thing is, since I live alone, there's a secret little camera in almost every part of the house, and as I expected, one of them caught my daughter-in-law pushing me down the stairs, a very clearly 1080p. As the footage from the hidden camera played on the screen, the room fell silent. My daughter-in-law's face drained of color as she watched herself push me down the stairs in a fit of rage. The gasp of murmurs of shock from the rest of the family filled the room, with the sound of my daughter-in-law's panic protest. But it's too late for you, darling. The truth was out, and there was no denying it. My son's face went pale, his eyes wide with horror. He looked at his wife, shocked and disbelief. The realization of what she had done hit him like a ton of bricks. It shattered his illusion of love. The rest of the family looked on in shock, unsure of what to do or say. They'd witnessed the true extent of my daughter-in-law's cruelty, and in a moment of rage and betrayal, my son lashed out. He slapped his wife clean across the face. He asked her to get the heck out of the house, and my daughter-in-law dropped to her knees, begging and pleading for forgiveness, and she begged with him, please to reconsider. To give her another chance, however, he was too angry, and she threw her luggage, right out of the house, and asked her to get. A few days later, he filed for divorce and sued her for assault. My daughter-in-law tried to contact my son and me multiple times, begging them to stop. But we both straight up refused, and, we weren't even going to talk to her, and cut her off promptly. She's all alone, she's miserable, and she has nowhere to go. My son has moved in with me as he no longer wants me to live alone. He asked his company for a hybrid work setting, and they're okay with it. I think my son is dating someone again, but this time I'm sure he'll think twice before rushing it. Anyways, this is my story. Thank you for the support, and that's all. Toodaloo.